Hello students, welcome back to Vidya Jyoti Academy. This is Ahmed Shaikh, your science teacher. We are going to learn chapter number 6 Life Processes. This is part 1. Today's topic is what are life processes? In this video, we'll try to understand the difference between living beings and non-living beings, and we'll see that what are different life processes which are carried out by different living organisms. So let's get started. Okay, so we have few objects over here. I would like you people to identify which among them are living and which are not. You can pause the video for a while to determine it. Well, I assume that you have answered it correctly, that pen and chair are non-living, rest all others are living organisms. Now the question is, how did we understood or determine that which among them are living and not? Let's try to analyze the question at the first place. We see that the dog in the image is barking. So barking exhibits some kind of movement and production of sound. This is a property of living beings that we usually seek to identify whether it's a living being or not. On the other hand, if we talk about cow seems to be eating cud. Eating is also a property of living organisms. The next one over here, the man seems to shout to someone. Shouting and movement is again a property of living being. What about the tree? The tree exhibits a kind of movement which is not perceived by human beings. It is growth. So all of these properties like movement, production of sound, eating are few actions or movements which are exhibited by living organisms and not by non-living thing. If we talk about pen and chair, neither do they move by their own, nor do they eat, nor do they produce any kind of sound without any external energy. So this is how we can interpret whether a given object is living organism or not. So we'll see that what we have observed till now and what we have understood. The first thing over here is that usually is a tendency of our human brain to observe movement of other objects to determine whether they are living organisms or not. Movements include locomotion, breathing, production of sound, eating, growth, etc. Now the next thing is that is the movement in the molecular level as important as the movement which is exhibited from outside the body? The answer to this question is yes. Let's see how. So we'll understand different kinds of movements exhibited by living organisms. We can say that movement can be broadly classified into two categories, that is visible and not visible. Movement which falls under visible category is locomotion. Locomotion is nothing but an act of moving from one place to another. Breathing is an act of taking air inside the body and releasing it out. Producing sound, eating. These are few visible actions or movements that are exhibited by living beings. On contrary, if we talk about not visible movements, they are growth. Now, growth is not visible because it is relatively a very slow process. So the changes is not perceived by human beings. The next one is molecular movement. We've already learned in standard 9 that molecules are very small that we cannot see it by our naked eyes. Movement of molecules within the body of living beings cannot be perceived by human beings without any devices. So these all are the movements that are exhibited by living beings, and this can help us to determine whether a given object is living being or not. We'll try to understand about molecular movement in great details now. So we have molecular movement now. To understand this greatly, we'll take an example of human body. Now, human are multicellular living organisms, and you all might be knowing that human beings have specialized organs made by specialized tissues to carry out specialized tasks. Now, these tissues are made up of cells, which are the fundamental unit of life, and cell requires energy to perform their tasks. Now, the question is, where will these cells get energy from? The answer to it is obvious, and we all know that we eat food. And by eating food, we get the energy. The food that we eat is digested completely in the intestine. The complex molecules present in the food are broken down into simple ones so that it can be used by the cells for for producing energy as well as for growth. Now the thing is that for energy, our body needs a kind of external resources which is to be entered into our body. So this is the need for materials from outside the body. And to do that, the process which involves in this activity is nutrition. Based on different kinds of food on which the living organism is dependent upon, the mode of nutrition is different. Secondly, if we have the digested food, that is not enough to produce energy. Why? Because the food that have been digested needs to be oxidized or reduced so that energy can be formed. Now for that, human beings use a process oxidation. We oxidize food so that we can produce energy. So the question is, how will our body get the oxygen? The answer to this is also obvious, that we breathe in air. So we take in the air and the lungs absorbs the oxygen from it. So our body's second need for energy production is what? It is the need for oxygen. Now this need is brought about by the process called as respiration. So now if you observe, we have the two necessary materials which is necessary for production of energy. Those materials are digested food as well as oxygen. But if you see it, we come to know that these two required materials are residing in completely two different organs. Now, how will they two meet together inside the cell so that energy production starts? The heart and blood, which is a part of the circulatory system, comes into action. We know that the heart transports blood, and this is the need of a body, that movement of molecule from an organ to another should be there. This requirement is carried out by the process called as transportation. So transportation is an act of moving molecules from one place to another where it is required. Now, if we assume that due to transportation, the food which was there in this time and the oxygen which was there in the lungs now have came to a place inside the cell. Once the cell produces energy using those resources, there are few byproducts formed. These byproducts can be harmful to the body and it can cause toxicity to the cell. Because of that, these harmful products should be expelled out of the body. So for that, again transportation comes into action, because the blood will carry these wasteful particles and it will take to those organs which is responsible for expelling out the waste materials. So the next need of the body is expel harmful byproducts, and the process which is used to do this is excretion. So if you see over here, these are few life processes and molecular movement which is necessary for the body to sustain life. So here we're going to talk about crucial life processes that we have understood till now. The first one is nutrition, and in nutrition we'll be using the external resources and we'll be inserting that into our body so that we can synthesize that food and try to harvest energy out of it and use that material for growth also. Next is respiration. It is the act of taking in the oxygen so that it can oxidize food to harvest the energy. The next one is transportation. It is the act of moving of molecules from one place to another within the body. The fourth one is excretion. It is the act of expelling out the harmful and wasteful products from the body. Now you might be guessing that these are only the life processes which are very crucial. But apart from these four, we have few other crucial life processes also. The next one is control and coordination. Because we know that our body is made up of several organs, there should be a coordination between these organs because their functions are interrelated to each other. So for that we have a completely different system called as control and coordination, and for this we have a complete different chapter in our textbook. Apart from this, reproduction is also important, not to sustain life as an individual, but for the species as a whole. Reproduction is necessary. Reproduction is an act of replicating or multiplicating into numbers within the same species. Now, due to reproduction, there is another thing which comes into action, which is evolution. So if you see, reproduction has a complete different chapter in your textbook as well as evolution. So these are all crucial life processes that is necessary for a living being to sustain life. So students, this is your homework. I would like you people to pause the video for a while, have a note of this, and be sure to complete your homework so that you might have quite good revision about what we have learned today. Thank you for seeing the video. I hope so you like the video. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and follow us on Instagram and Facebook too. Stay tuned for the next video.